Hello and welcome back to Reeve's Ramblings. As you can tell, there's no me in this one, there's just my voice. The reasoning for this is that last time I used the thumbnail as the video for the most of it due to the fact the audio was out of sync. I figured I may as well just do the same thing again, but throughout the entire video, rather than fade into it. And so, today we will be discussing a hobby of mine. It's not going to be a light-hearted, well, it's going to be a light-hearted discussion, but it's not going to be a surface-level discussion of my hobbies. It's going to be more of a deep discussion of my hobbies. There's going to be Kungfu, Dungeons & Dragons, and pole fitness, for they are my three main hobbies. We're going to start with Kungfu, because it is the one that I've been doing the longest, I just realised. Kungfu is a martial art. I believe that it literally translates from Chinese to great skill. However, it is a martial art meant to be used in self-defense. I personally study the Hokfu Long Pai variety of Kung Fu, and I believe that is Tiger, Dragon, Crane, or something like that. So, why do I want to discuss Kung Fu? Well, it is commonly held that martial arts are learned as self-defense. That is predominantly the reason they were created, when the older ones were created. And so, it is odd, in my opinion, that most of them don't teach practical self-defense. My brother quite often likes to point out that wushu is more about movement and physical health and flexibility and whatnot than it is practical self-defense. My Kung Fu is almost entirely about dealing damage to your opponent and not to yourself. Of course, my instructor has stated many times that if you find yourself in a situation where you need to use Kung Fu, then you have already lost. But he then goes on to say that if you want to lose without getting hurt. So, I find it interesting that there are cutting techniques that we learn, which just use your knuckles. Not entirely sure how probable it is to actually cut someone using your knuckles, but it's something that I've become interested in recently. It's far above my belt, but yes. There are also forms, which aren't particularly practical, other than building leg muscles, but the building leg muscles is incredibly important, as anyone who's seen The Karate Kid will know that the foundations of a person's ability to fight is pretty much their legs. Like a tree, you've got to be rooted to the ground, otherwise if you get taken off your feet, most of the time, most people will be wrecked. Though that isn't a hard and fast rule, which is something that irritated me in high school. Anytime anyone got taken to the ground in high school, it was automatically assumed that they lost. For example, I had one fight with a person who I'm obviously not going to name, because they stole my bike bump, and so I strangled them because I had anger problems. Then, as I turned around, they dump-tackled me to the ground, and then the bell went, and we each went to our classes because we aren't stupid, we want to go to class, we don't want to get in trouble. So everyone was like, oh no, you lost. I was like, no, I got taken to the floor, there's a difference. Regardless though, hobbies are fun, most of the time. And I find Kung Fu incredibly fun. It is just amazing for me, really. But it is also the hardest thing that I've committed to. Aside from pole, perhaps, but I'll get to that when I get to that. It has made me lose a lot of fat, put on a lot of weight, but it's muscle weight, so that's probably good. And, yeah, it's very useful self-defense-wise as well, but I know that it's mostly just because I now will instinctively do some things. Most of the stuff we do at Kung Fu is not very useful. My belt, which is like the one that I'm going on to do, is the 5th belt, I believe, having gone no belt to yellow, yellow to green, green to red, green to orange, orange to red. Then red to white is what I'm currently doing. And on that belt, we have Long Dragon, a form which is mostly a breathing exercise, which will probably be helpful for me because I can't breathe very well. Then there we have Pounding Wave, which is an excellent exercise but not very effective in general when it comes to actual self-defense. We have the 2 and 4 winds drill, which again is an excellent exercise but in itself isn't good for self-defense. However, it should build up your reaction speeds and general dexterity, so that would be good. Then on top of that, there are the crane techniques, block and strike, most of which are absolutely terrible. But you've got to know them for the belt. The most useful parts, though, are locks and breakouts, because a lock is a good, less violent way to control a situation, so that you don't get hurt and the other person also doesn't get hurt too badly if they attack you. You can detain them, whatever, calm them down. Breakouts, if someone gets you in a lock for whatever reason, because it happens, they're super effective. There is some traditional ones that you've got to learn that aren't so effective, but for the most part, they work. Sometimes you have to do them relatively quickly, but they work. And so, Kung Fu, and just martial arts in general, I think are fabulous, and I feel as though they should be looked upon with more normalcy, because they don't really do anything like that at schools. And yes, I know that it's kind of like the gun thing in America, where if everyone does self-defense, then everyone will know how to do and counter self-defense. But I also feel as though it would just be generally useful, keep people fitter and whatnot. Because if, this is just me personally, if we got taught in PE, okay, for this term, we're going to be doing self-defense. So pair up, and we'll teach you this, and then that. This is how you punch properly, this is that, and this. I would have paid so much more attention than, okay, we're doing rugby again for the 4th year in a row. Or, okay, it's raining, so we're gonna just play cricket in the gym. Or dodgeball, or whatever. I love me some dodgeball, don't get me wrong. And I also adored, rounders and whatnot. There is a lot of PE that I enjoyed, but it's not particularly practical for most people, doing rugby 3 years in a row, 4 years in a row, whatever it is. And it's very practical for everyone to know a little bit of self-defense. Especially if it, because that could save lives. Especially if it was just our national curriculum made it a thing. Because I don't agree with the national curriculum anyway, but that's the subject for something else entirely. But if everyone did it, it would surely be spectacular. Now then, I have probably talked about martial arts and the benefit of everyone doing it enough, the benefit of me personally doing it enough, but I also just want to point out there are some bad points. For example, lots of people disagree about sparring and competitions. I don't do Kung Fu for competitive purposes, and a lot of people think that I should. Mostly these are people that I'm related to and whatnot, but that's fine. 1, I don't think I'm good enough for proper competitive levels, and 2, the majority, if not all of the competitions are point-based, as opposed to contact. I feel as though this is not a very good representation of self-defense, because in self-defense you don't punch just in front of someone's face and win. If you do that in self-defense, then you're probably just going to have, get stabbed or something, which isn't good. You punch someone in the face, though I feel as though, even in most contact things, punches to the face are probably frowned upon, but who knows. It's not really in boxing, so, whatever. Yeah. And then sparring, whether it should be full contact, medium contact, light contact, or no contact. No contact is obviously stupid, in my opinion. My brother likes light contact. I like medium contact. And then, when you get up to much higher levels and you get used to it, full contact. But that's just because I'm an incredibly durable person when you're talking about impact. When you're talking about, tension, not so much. Which kind of brings me on to pole. I wounded my elbow, 5-6 months ago, at pole. And it hasn't healed properly yet. And I'm just currently taking collagen tablets to help me heal, because it was my either the tendon or the ligament, I forget now, it's been so long. and it was incredibly painful. And ideally, I probably should have done something about it sooner, because I waited a while thinking, oh, it's just like, I don't know, I've pulled a muscle or something, might have slightly dislocated it, it'll be fine. It wasn't. And so, pole is the other physical exercise thing that I tend to do a reasonable amount of. I can't at the moment because my elbow will not let me do it. If I continue to do it with my elbow as it is, chances are I may end up, like, just losing that much use of my arm, which I don't really want to do. So yeah, I'm going to wait and see if that heals. But pole fitness is, again, commonly misconceived. It is often seen as pole dancing, which is completely separate. Pole fitness is an exercise thing. It's about getting fit using a pole. Yes, a lot of it is also, don't forget to point your toes and yada yada yada, which leads into pole dancing. And then the sequences are usually dance related. For example, I am part of the pole fitness club at my university, and, well, the competitions are, they're pole fitness, but you do dancing on a pole for it. Not necessarily the exotic dancing that comes to mind when people think about pole dancing, the sort of, I am going to a strip club kind of dancing. No, it's not necessarily like that. Like, there's so many ones. I've seen funny routines, I've seen epic routines, and they're all phenomenal and somehow seem to break physics every time. So I feel as though pole fitness doesn't get enough credit for what it is. It's also incredibly difficult. I would say it's harder than Kungfu for me. And when I first started Kungfu, that was insanely difficult, because I must have been like 15 and like obese, just with fat. Like, no muscle. Yeah, sure, probably like quite dense bones, but mostly fat. So pole fitness is incredibly difficult. It has recently been recognised officially as a sport, and is currently seeking a place in the Olympics, which I believe it would earn. Because I don't know all of the things in the Olympics, and I'm sure that a lot of them are harder than they appear to be, and I'm not going to look into it. But dressage, for example. Horse dancing. That's in the Olympics, I think. I believe football is also in the Olympics. Then there's, like, high jump, which is like... No, not high jump, the pole vault, which is like high jump, but with a pole. So why shouldn't pole fitness be there as well, really? So, you know, I feel as though it would earn its place in the Olympics, like, rapidly, and people would start taking it seriously, perhaps. Because any time that I tell anyone that I do it, I get a lot of weird glances. Like, a lot. And I get it. I don't really look like the kind of guy that would do that sort of exercise anyway. If anything, like, I look like a kind of guy who doesn't do any exercise, or, like, is a gym lad. Though I don't have, like, the belly or chest of a gym lad at all. Yeah, I'm a bit chubby for that. But, you know, people just wouldn't expect that of me, especially with my personality, which is, yeah, not really very similar to many of the people who do pole at my club, or the people who I met at any of the pole events I've been to. But that's fine, because they're all really nice, and seem to, like, I get along with them, they seem to get along with me, it's all good. But, yeah. Pole fitness, it is incredibly difficult. Some of the first level, like the beginner moves aren't too difficult, but they still put a physical strain on your body, so much so that I can't physically do most of them with my elbow as it is. And, yeah. Then there's the higher level moves, which are insane. Like, if you look up the PDC, pole dance community syllabus, or whatever it is, just look at anything level 5 or 6. Half the stuff on level 4 seems insane to me. Level 3, I can, before my elbow and just after I wounded it, I could nearly do some of it. Like, I could do some of it, but I couldn't hold it or anything like that. I'm specifically designating my workout so I'll be better at pole when I get back to it, because I've been a beginner for 2 years now and it's really beginning to piss me off. But pole dance and pole fitness are separate, though very linked things, and I feel as though both of them really should get more attention, because pole dance isn't all the exotic dancing from, as I said, strip clubs and such like. There is the showing of one's physical capabilities that they have got potentially through pole fitness or other fitness means, that it's just impressive. Not like raunchy or anything like that. Some of them can be. You can have impressive and raunchy ones, but you can have impressive non-raunchy ones, which are equally, if not even more so, beautiful to watch. So yeah, if you haven't ever considered pole fitness as a sport, and you still don't, let me know why in the comments, because, oh my lord, it is. It just is. Like, even given the actual definition of it, it is. Though apparently yoga is also a sport, and I don't think that it matches the definition of sport, because if I'm not mistaken, the definition of sport is something along the lines of a physical activity that can be used competitively, and I'm sure there can be like yoga offs, and it is undeniably a physical activity that is strenuous to some degree. But I mean, frisbee is a sport, so you could say yoga's a sport, but I've never heard of people doing competitive yoga. So yeah. Regardless, though, I'm going to move away from the physical activities to what I imagine will be the rest of the video on my other hobby, Dungeons and Dragons. That's right, everyone, Dungeons and Dragons. So I learnt the majority of how to play from internet famous superstars, the cast of Critical Role. If I remember, I'll put a link in the description to Critical Role, because Critical Role is amazing. However, I learned a lot of how to play from that and trial and error. And I only started playing when I got to university, because I bit the bullet and spent some of my money on it. Like, I got the starter set, I got the books, we're good to go. Because I'd wanted to play before then, but I could never find anyone to DM who was experienced or whatever, so we just sort of winged it. We were terrible during our first session, absolutely terrible. Potentially I'll tell that story somewhere else on the channel at some point. And yeah, it was really, really fun. Eventually we actually learned how to play, and now I play probably every week with my housemates when we're all there. It's just the 4 of us out of the 6. We play, it's great, it's wonderful. We have multiple campaigns going on at once. I also have a group that I made with my flatmate, 2 of my flatmates last year, and one of their friends is the DM, best DM I've ever had. I would probably say is rival to Matthew Mercer, and if he had the same resources, he probably would be, like, on par, even though he has less experience. Well, maybe not quite on par, because Matthew Mercer is a god, but, you know, whatever. And then I DM'd my first game, whilst drinking nothing but absinthe and iron brew for 18 hours, with no sleep, and just one small break to go to, I think it was KFC, to get food and come back and keep playing. And it was in a blanket fort, and I loved every single second of it. I had very little idea what I was doing. Started off in Nuskanor with a zombie attack. That's all I had, like, planned, because I just came up with it in my head when they were like, yeah, we'll play. I helped them make characters and whatnot. And then Nuskanor was, like, a port city, so I was like, cool, zombies attack, whilst you're all in the market having just found your way there. This person's dead. And they're like, cool. One of them was like, okay, I'll go to the warriors and get help, because there was a tent full of warriors, and the warriors were just like, nah, go away, we're all good. If they attack us, we'll kill them, but, you know. Then there was a druid who, like, shape changed into a dog, and then there was a ranger who had a dog. It was all weird and wonderful, if slightly creepy at times, but wonderful. And then I spent like 300 hours last summer preparing DMing stuff and whatnot, and just playing, and I had a group of 16 players. Ooh, never do that. But yeah, Dungeons and Dragons, enough of my personal experience for now. We'll get into me as a player in a bit, but I think that it is something that kids could benefit from. It develops problem-solving skills, thinking outside of the box, so to speak, even though that's a very strange expression. Then it also helps with maths. Most of the maths I do nowadays is for Dungeons and Dragons. In fact, for the other day, we had to whack out, it was trig. We had to whack out trig during a Dungeons and Dragons game to work out the distance some people were away from each other. Because for anyone who doesn't know, Dungeons and Dragons works in feet. If you use sort of a grid map, which is what I tend to do, then 1 square usually equals 5 feet. So then most character races can move 30 feet per round. So it's like, okay, how far away are they? 25 feet. Cool, I'll run up to them and do yada yada yada. So we also had some people off of the ground, though. They were flying, they were like 60 feet up, then they were 90 feet up, they were like 60 feet, 65 feet away. So we had the two lengths. We knew it was right angle. I didn't do the maths, but had we not had a resident physicist, we would have got someone to do the maths. Probably been me, because I was the dungeon master. This was literally like 2-3 days ago. So that's the most advanced maths that I would have had to have done since I finished my GCSEs. Aside from the fact when me and my friend were bored one day, we calculated how fast someone would have to run to be able to jump over a lake. But that's because we're weird, and most normal people wouldn't do stuff like that. So Dungeons and Dragons helps build and sustain mathematical skills. Like, I, having done stuff like that before during Dungeons and Dragons, I sort of got used to guessing it, because I knew roughly how it works, so I was like, it's probably about 80 feet. Turns out it was 88 feet, so I was close. We've rounded up to 90, because it works in 5 feet intervals, really. But yeah, Dungeons and Dragons, great for mathematical skills, probably even better for problem-solving skills. Social interaction, oh my god, D&D is the best thing for that, because there is the in-character social interactions if you get into the whole role-playing thing, which I love so much, even though I do suck at remembering the voices I give my characters, so eventually I end up just talking like this, and being like, oh, hello, barkeep, I'm would like to order a beverage, if I may. Oh, what's that, 5 coppers? Oh, well, I only have 1 silver, do you have change? Rather than doing my actual voice. Speaking of which, I need to think of a voice for my latest character, which we'll get into in a sec. So, yeah, it's great for that, but also, you take breaks. Like, usually, like, snack breaks, toilet breaks, long rest, people have to level up, so some people don't have to level up, or finish beforehand, or pre-prepared, so there's interaction between people face-to-face there, and in a world where there's lots of sort of texting and social media messaging and whatnot like that, it's good to get face-to-face, or like over Skype or something, and just talk to people as, you know, using your voice, because it's a skill that I fear that people are going to lack more and more, because I'm not very good at it. I'm, like, you can probably tell, watch any of my revlogs, I'm awkward as all hell, but, you know, whatever, that's why I don't revlog around other people, because then I'm even more awkward. I'm nice and comfortable when I'm by myself. I'm excellent at texting people, even though my phone is currently dying, and I get sweaty thumbs quite often, which means that I have a lot of typos, but, like, I can convey my emotions a lot better through the written media, rather than speaking, as one should probably find more natural. So, Dungeons & Dragons would definitely help with that. Definitely. You can also use it to work out issues that you don't know how to tackle in real life. For example, I I'm sorry if he wouldn't want me using this example, but he's mentioned it on his Twitter and stuff. Liam O'Brien of Critical Role as Vax'il Dan tackled the issue of losing a family member through Dungeons & Dragons. Like, not just Dungeons & Dragons. He obviously dealt with it in real life, but it helped him to get through that and process everything better, I think. I haven't really looked into it. I was just sad to hear that he'd lost someone, because he seems like a great dude, and he is the voice of Illidan Stormwind. Is it Stormwind? I don't know. Malfurion Stormwind and Illidan Stormwind? They're brothers? I don't know. But whatever. Yeah, he is the voice of Illidan in World of Warcraft. So, you know, he does the whole, you are not that was terrible. You are not prepared thing. I'm not very good at doing that impression. But, you know, whatever is fine. So, moving forward with that, my latest character, because my first character, their name I do not remember, it might have been Samael, and they were a tiefling ranger, and we did it all wrong, but it was fine. Yeah, they were my first character. Then my first proper character was a tiefling monk, called Perun Skald. I'm still using them to this day, and they have appeared in every single campaign I have ran, besides one, like as an NPC, or a DMPC for that matter. Then my most recent character, I will actually load up their character sheet right now, because I am obviously at my computer recording this. Yes, their name, because I forget their name, is Perrin Goodbarrel. They're a halfling. They're probably the first halfling that I'm actually planning on playing, because I've never actually been one before. I have technically been them, but never for long. I get bored or whatever, or they've just been an NPC. I can't really remember. I've had so many at this point. But yes, Perrin Goodbarrel is a one-armed monk, because I always overpower my characters, which is another thing in D&D. Like, you don't just learn how to problem solve, you learn how to optimize. At least I did. Like, I can optimize a D&D character wonderfully most of the time. Just I have to spend a bit of time thinking about it. But yeah, it's only got one arm, and they're a monk. So I can use my Kungfu knowledge as monks. Monks probably are my joint favourite class alongside Warlock, just because I like the flavour to Warlock, and also what all of the stuff you can do, Pact of the Chain, Imp. But enough about that. I have, making this character was almost as fun as playing the game. D&D is probably the single biggest source of joy in my life right now. Last year, in fact, even, just around this time last year, I probably would have said something different. But, shit happens, a source of joy in my life has, just gone, which leaves D&D, which was the second, to take the place of the first. Gold medal D&D. I love doing YouTube. It probably comes third in my, most enjoyable parts of my life. Outranked by Kungfu, and then D&D. Excluding, of course, spending time with my friends, but if we have that as a completely separate thing, because D&D includes that, and Kungfu doesn't really include that, but I talk to them about it a lot. Because spending time with my friends, I don't know how to rank that, because it varies so much depending on the friend, and how long, and what we do, and how it goes, and all that stuff. So, yeah. D&D is not, it's more than just escapism, it's more than just fat people in their mum's basements, and it's more really than I can put into proper words. It's a way of dealing with life, which sounds like just escapism, but it's not. Because it gives you everything you need to deal with life without escaping it. It gives you social skills, it gives you problem solving and logical thinking to an extent. It gives you like creative thinking, because you have to think of backgrounds for your stories. If you DM, you have to think of world building. That's a skill that is phenomenally important for authors, game designers, etc. You can even make your own music and artwork for it. It can incorporate almost anything, really, and so it can prepare you for almost anything, really. Yeah. It's... There are a lot of bad things in the world, and I would argue that Dungeons & Dragons is the antithesis to most of them. Not just Dungeons & Dragons, tabletop role-playing in general, but I've only really experienced with Dungeons & Dragons, though I will be playing some 5th Age at some point this upcoming year, and I'm excited to see how that goes. So, yeah. My hobbies are great sources of joy, and I'm really upset that I can't do pole anymore. One day, hopefully I'll be able to do it again, but for now it's just a no-fly zone for me. Yeah. But that's me talking about me enough for this second episode of Reeve's Ramblings, where I've been rambling about my own hobbies. If there's anything you'd like me to ramble on about, then let me know. But otherwise, I will probably be talking about some grandiose concept, or potentially food, or fitness, or something like that next time, because I have no idea what to talk about for these things, ever, and hence why they're me rambling. Regardless, I'll catch you cats on the flip-flop. Goodbye.